Okay, so let's okay, so tonight basically we're going to start with amortization, sinking funds, and hopefully we will get into the cash flows as well. So firstly, amortization, and I think what is important in this aspect is nearly we need to look at amortization like um, we look at it from a point of view that something that one is very more comfortable with is when you look at repayments of loans. So if you have a home bond, a car loan, any other loans, the way that you repay those loans is according to the amortization rules. So it's not something that one is not familiar with. And what basically happens in this instance is, and we can go to nearly the next slide just to show this as well for you guys, is that one looks at it from a point of view that you will get or an amount that you will need to repay. So normally you would then around that get interest rate and get some periods around that, and you will calculate your repayment, or the premium that you need to pay, or anything else linked to that. Okay, and there will be some examples that we will look out for that. And if you need the the formula that we will work with, it is here as well. But also, again, we can use the calculators. So mostly we don't need to use the formula. We can use the calculator, or we can even use Excel in certain of these formulas. Okay, so that is when we look at amortization. Then the other part of this study unit is sinking funds, and basically a sinking fund is very much the same as a savings account, but you use that in some different ways. And again, we will look at examples of sinking funds, and how to calculate that as well. Okay, so the first example that I have for you guys, and I thought um, let's you can try it a bit and see if you can also do it. So I'm going to give you a few minutes. Um, See if you can do it, and then we can work through it. So and then we can go step by step. We can go through it. So let's give it a minute or two. You don't need to really go full out and work it out, but if you want to write down some of the steps that you would do. So let's just quickly read what is in the question. A loan is repaid in 20 monthly repayments. The first 12 payments will be 3,000 Rand each, paid at the end of each month. Thereafter, the payments will be 6,000 per month, paid at the beginning of each month, and an interest rate of 19.6%, compounded monthly is applicable. So we need to work out what is the present value of this loan. Okay, so, and let me quickly, let's just draw a timeline. So loan is repaid in 20 monthly payments, first 12 months. Each 3,000 rand each, paid at the end of each month. Thereafter, the payments will be 6 months, so there's 8 months left. And those 8 months, it will be 6,000. And that will be when paid at the beginning of each month. Okay, and both are 19.6%. Okay. Okay, so I'm getting my calculator also ready, so I'll do the steps now. But if you want to just write down a few things that you would have done. Okay, so for the first part, this component, we basically working with, and I'll write it down, what we will do on a calculator. So it is 3,000 Rand PMT, because they tell us that we have the 3,000 Rand payments per month. So we have that for 12 months. So your period is for 12 months. We've got it for 19.6% interest. And then we work out, and they've told us that we need to work out a present value. So then if we put that into our calculator to work out the present value, we get 32, let's just write it better, 32,452.37. Okay, so the first component that we worked out is actually the first answer, but obviously we still need to work out a second component as well. So we will need to work with the 8 of the 8 months, the 6,000. So very important in the second part, here they tell us that it is the beginning of each month. Okay, so not the normal way that it's the end of a month, it is now at the beginning. So on your financial calculator, we will need to change it from the end of a month to the beginning of a month. So that's the first thing that we need to do. So we need to say begin, and then it is again the minus 6,000 PMT. then it is for 8 months. It is still the 19.6. I think that's important. There wasn't a change in interest. So let me just put that 19.6 interest. Then the 8 months. So let me quickly do that. And the 19.6. And then your present value of that one is 45,385.1.16, but let me just quickly see what we still need to change here. Loan repay the first. And then, so that would have been 45, 385. Oh, I don't like this for my laptop, but that's fine. Let me just change that we can at least see. Okay, so that was the future value, but that future value is there. Okay, so with all of that information that we put in now for the second calculation, remember the future value. What we did now is to calculate it up until that 8 months before. So now we still need to work it back to the future value at the beginning of a period. So again, that is important. That otherwise, if you add the 32 and the 45, you will get the 77 one. So actually that one. So very important that, yes, that is correct what we did, but it is on that point. So we still need to multiply that then by this formula to make it the future value at the beginning of the term. Okay, so now we only had it beginning of the last 8 months, so we need to work it back to the beginning of a term, and then we get 37,366.28. And then if we add those two together, we will get option 2 as the correct answer. So with this one, what was very important to work out the future value of the first component is absolutely straightforward. So that is how we would normally do it. With what we put in, we will get the future value at that point. And that is what we're looking for. But with the future value that we worked out for the second part, remember it is sitting at that point. And we still then need to work it back to this early point. And with that, we still need to say, okay, but we nearly take it back another year to get to that point. Okay, so that was a catch in this question was definitely that component, because again, easy to calculate that part, because yes, you need to change your calculator from from end to begin. But then again, you have your payments per month that you're making, that's 6,000. You do it for 8 months. You put in your interest rate, you get that 45,000. But then you need to take it back another year. Okay, questions on this one? Okay, so what I've also added for you guys in the slide pack that I will share on the WhatsApp group as well, is the whole way of calculating it. So I have included the memo to that question. Okay, and then let me just, if anyone still needs to join the WhatsApp group and are not on it, let me just put the link to our WhatsApp group. So it is in the chat. I've added the link to the WhatsApp group. So if you want to join it, if you're not on it and can't join via the link, it's 0837908387. Okay, cool. So let's go to the next one that very much a type of question that you guys all would have had already maybe in one of your assignments, or that they might have in the exam as well. So they give you a part of an amortization table. They don't give everything to you guys, but they tell you that, so talk about the inverse home loan over a 20-year period, and then they give you 2 months of that period. And what they give you is some information around that. Okay, so then they ask, the first question that they ask is, what is the applicable nominal interest rate that is compounded monthly? Okay, so again, I'm going to leave it up there. Take a minute or two, think about how you would approach this nearly, and then we will get into calculating it. Okay, so look at a few things that can assist you with interest, of what we need to work out. Okay, so what they give us in here is a few things. So let's first, and it's not, I will share with you all the formulas that you also have that ready by the time you write exam. There's some notes that I've made with some of the formulas as well, so I will share that with you. But one of the formulas is, and this takes us back to, what was it, study unit 2, when we actually looked at, well, study unit 2 and 3, when we looked at interest. um, and compound interest. And we had this formula that said to us the interest that we have is calculated by the present value times the interest rate times time. So in here, we have information to work out this interest rate. So it doesn't always come as straightforward as it needs to be. So in here, we've got the R, that is the interest rate that we want actually to calculate. So if we isolate for R here, we can then say, well, the interest that was calculated divided by the PT will give me my interest rate. And then let's look at that first line where we have all of the information in there. So there is my interest amount. So I can work with that. The 6036.4. So the interest is covered. Then what I also have is the beginning period. I've got that. So the beginning of that period would have been 503,033.57. And my time, so it is per month. So my time is 1 month. So very important, 1/2. 1/12, sorry. So then with calculating this, I am supposed then to get my interest rate. So let's quickly do that. If I say 6036.4 divided by 503,033.57 times 1 divided by 12. So if I work that out, I get 0.1440. And then to change it into interest rate, I times with 100 to get me 14.4%. Okay, which is then actually that first answer. Okay, so a bit different to some of the other questions. So here they give you bits and pieces of a amortization schedule, and then they ask you to work out the interest. Other times they might give you the interest and some other information, and they want you to work out a payment or one of the others. So I thought this was an interesting one, just to nearly look at it from the other side as well. Okay. Questions on this? So we'll go through another one or two of these types of questions, just to give you some guidance and some examples of the questions that you might get in your assignments and then in your final exam as well. Okay, so again, Um, what I've done is to include the answer for you. So again, I will share it on our WhatsApp group. Okay, so a question from nearly that first part. So let me just copy that. Let's just add it in here. So that we have the information. Okay, so a follow-up question, and again, this is also very likely to happen in your assignments and in your exam, that they might have a follow-up question. So specifically around amortization, one always feels that there might be two questions around that. So the follow-up question is, so what is the size of the loan approximately? Okay, so this is a interesting one. Remember, we have now the interest rate of 14.4. So let me just write that. We've got, I didn't write now. So we've got the interest rate of 14.4. Again, now looking at the information that they give us, what would you nearly say can be the answer? And again, first try it a bit. We can take a minute or two or three for you to see how you would calculate it. And even if it is only by writing down what you need to calculate and some of the information needed. And then I would tell you how I would have done it as well. Okay, so let's write down a few things that we now know. So we know the interest rate is 14.4%. So that's something you can put in your calculator. We know that they said it it's a bond repayment, sorry, of that's paid monthly and for 20 years. Okay, so we have those two components. And then the other thing that we get from this table is our monthly payments. So we've got the monthly payment of 15,908.46. So then to work out the present value, we have all the information. So we just put in interest rate of 14.4%, 12 times a year for 20 years, put in the PMT, and then we calculate the present value. And then that value should be close to the 1.25 million. Very important, if you would have, and let me just quickly also work it out again, 14.4%, 12 times a year, 20 years. So it's about 240 monthly payments, 15,908.46 payment per month. And then present value is the 1.25. So mine is 1.2500000.1169, but you can round it off to the nearest whole number. Okay, so did you guys also get that when you calculated it? And then also, does it make sense? Is it, did you know where to look for some of the information? The problem with these questions is, unfortunately, if you had this wrong, this one will also be wrong. And that is unfortunate, and that is why in your assignments and in your exam, there is nearly only one of these types where it is nearly two questions that they ask, because unfortunately, it will happen that if a one is wrong, and then you work with a wrong number, unfortunately, the next one will be wrong as well. So let me just, did you guys also realize where to look for the payment and for other information? So was it easy, or was it a bit difficult to find it? And you can just easy with a thumbs up. If you don't reply, that's fine. You can put something in the chat as well. Okay, cool. Okay, so, and again, I have added the answer to that as well, so that you have it available for later on, and when you want to test it. Okay, so now just to round off this study unit, there is a question on sinking funds, and then there's another question that I've added. So this one, sinking funds. So again, look at the question, write down a few things that you would have done nearly to see how you would have maybe calculated it, and then we can go through a process as well. So let's just quickly read through it. Lillian will just discharge a debt of 850,000 in 8 years' time. She's using the sinking fund method. With this, the debt interest is 14.8% per year, compounded monthly. The sinking fund will earn 12.6% per year compounded quarterly, and the quarterly deposit into the sinking fund will equal. Okay, so they're looking for that quarterly deposit into a sinking fund. Okay, so again, take about 2 or 3 minutes, write down what you would have done, and then we can go through it. Okay, so let's look at what we need to do. Okay, so the first thing is, she will discharge the debt of 850,000. So that's your future value would have been the 850,000. We need to get to a quarterly payment, so we will need to work to find out what the PMT is. Okay, so that is the thing that we will need to find out. So then just remember again, when we work with our calculators, to make the future value negative 850,000 so that we get a positive PMT. Then there's a few things that is important in here. So the sinking fund will earn 12.6%. So your interest rate component is 12.6. Then we need to check how many years, 8 years, and quarterly, so 4 times per year. So other times it would have been 12 times per year because sometimes it's monthly. With this one, quarterly, 4 times per year. So important that we change that on our calculators as well. And then it's for 8 years. And then if we basically work out the PMT, we will get the answer that we're looking for. So let me also just put that into my calculator. 850,000 future value. I normally just say my present value is 0, just so if there was from a previous question something in the memory, I just want to make it 0. 12.6 is the interest, 4 times per year for 8 years. So I know that there's actually 32 payment periods happening. And then if I press the PMT, I get 15770.08. Okay, so in this instance, we needed to work out what your quarterly premiums is, or that will be deposited into the sinking fund. So again, because we're working with a sinking fund, very important that we work with the percentage that's linked to the sinking fund. So very important that we don't, in this instance, work with 14.8. If we used 14.8, okay, luckily there wasn't an answer. Um, so luckily they didn't give us an answer, so that is cool. Sometimes what will happen is if we work with a wrong percentage, there might also be an answer for you. Okay, so that is a question around the sinking funds that they can ask you, and nearly in this type of question they can again change if they might give you the payments per year and you need to work out the future value. They might, yeah, not really, but if I really want to, they could have given you all the information and ask you to work out the interest rate or something like that. But that seldom happens with a sinking fund component. Normally, you need to work out the payments per period, or you need to work out the future value. Okay. And again, what I've done is also just included the method of how you would have solved it in any case. Okay, the last example nearly on this chapter. So again, so let me just quickly see. I think it's again from the previous one. So let's just copy in some of that information. So that we have it. So that is information from question 20. So by giving that information, question 21 was, so work out what your total yearly cost to discharge the debt will be. Okay, so that's a bit a different type of question. But again, take a few minutes, write down a few things around this, how you think you would want to solve it, and then we will quickly work it out again. So again, just look at what is given, and then think about what you would do to calculate it. And again, you can just jot down steps and things like that. Unless you want to calculate the whole thing, you can do that as well. So let's take another minute or two. Okay, so let's look at this. So the first thing that is important that we need to get with this one is, so they ask us the total yearly cost. So to discharge the debt. So basically, that yearly cost can be split into two. So the one is your quarterly deposits. So let's just say quarterly deposits. And that we actually worked out in question 20. And then the other component that we need to add to that is the monthly interest that we paid. Okay, so your yearly cost is your monthly interest plus that quarterly deposit. So the quarterly deposits, and again, unfortunately, if you got it wrong in question 20, it will seep through that this one is also wrong. But the quarterly deposit was for 15,770.08. And because quarterly, we multiplied by 4. Okay, so that is for quarterly deposits that we covered. Then our monthly interest. So the monthly interest that we will need to work out will be the second component of this. Okay, monthly interest. Now we go back again, study unit 3. Interest we calculate as PRT. Let's just see. We've got the P is the 850. We've got the interest. So now the important thing is that we use the 14.8% interest. And then the interest per month, so 1/12. So here you can have done two things now. So if you didn't say 1/12, we just don't multiply it by 12 there. So if you have it as 1/12, then just important when we work out the yearly interest, you need to multiply it by 12. Okay, so 850,000 times 14.8% divided by 12 give you 10,483.33. So if we didn't divide by 12, we would have gotten 125,800. 125,800. So again, if you multiply 12 by the 10,483.33, that is what you will get. So again, you can decide which one is for you, but easiest to remember. If you go to the monthly interest, but then you remember you need to times it, or you could have just not divided by 12 and you would have gotten that in any case. Okay, so the 125,800, luckily it's not one of our options. And then we need to add the quarterlies. So that was 15,770.08 times 4. So 63,080. So if we add the 63,080 plus 125,800, we will get 188,880. Okay, which is option 2. Okay, so important here was they told us that we need to work out the yearly cost. In that yearly cost, there is basically two components. The one is your quarterly deposits. So work out the deposit times 4 will give you then the 4 deposits for the year, which is that one component of the yearly cost. The second component of the yearly cost is your monthly interest. And again, with the way that we need to work out monthly interest, you could decide at this stage what to do with that 1/12, because again, yeah, if you didn't divide it by 12, you would have gotten the 125,800. What I would normally do is divide it by 12, because it might have been that they say your half yearly cost or 2 yearly cost, so that at least when, if it was half yearly, you multiply your monthly interest times 6. So just that one doesn't make the mistake if it is something different than the yearly cost. Okay, happy with that? Does it make sense? Will it assist you in assignments? You probably, this would have probably been one of your assignments already, I think, because we skipped last week. But and maybe the other question is, did something like this creep into any of your assignments at the moment? So let's hope that at least help. But I will share the slides with you later tonight as well. Okay, so this was basically on sinking funds and amortization. So I thought, okay, let's continue with the next chapter as well. We've definitely got some more time. We're going on until till 7. So let's also focus on the next chapter. So let me just get that up for you. Let's just check if it is. Okay. So we're looking at evaluation of cash flows. So that is chapter 6 on cash flows. So what I'm going to show you as we start this one is there's a few concepts that we need to know, but then there is a few methods that we will need to look at. So we will need to look at the payback method, which doesn't really normally come into your question sets. The average rate of return, also very seldom. The ones that are more frequently in your assignments and in the exam is your internal rate of return, your net present value method, your profitability index, and what I call your MIR, your modified interest rate of return. So this first one is, yes, things that you need to know, but the second block is more the important things that will definitely be in assignments and in your exam. So again, if you look at your exam, there's probably 2 of these 4 will be in your exam as questions. Okay, so let's just again go through some definitions, some information. So again, the things that we will look at, and I have some examples for most of them. is firstly the payback method. I'm going to show you how we calculate that. If by fluke it comes in one of your assignments or exam, then at least we have covered it. The average rate of return, internal rate of return, and net present value. So that part of a capital budgeting. So what your payback method says is that there's nearly two components that are important with that. So it measures how long it takes to recover the initial investment. And then obviously, the longer it takes, the riskier it is. So in this method, the quicker your initial investment is paid back, that is the proposal that you will go for. So there's not really a lot of what do we call it, specific formulas or methods for this. It is as straightforward as saying, okay, well, I started with 10,000 in proposal A. After a year, there's 3,000 paid back. After 2 years, it's 6,000. So after 3 years, my 10,000 is covered. Okay, so the only way I would accept proposal B if it is paid in 2 years' time. So if I look at proposal B, after 1 year, 1,000, after 2 years, 2,000, after 3 years, 3,000, only after 4 years, I have recovered my initial investment. So with a payback method, I would select proposal A because that tells me how quicker my investment was paid off. Even if you look at over 6 years, I will get a bigger return out of proposal B. For this method, I only wanted to focus on the quickest payback. So that is why I think we cover it. They probably will not ask it, but if it sneaks in, at least we have covered it. Because again, I look at this and I'm like, phew, okay, I would rather wanted to go for proposal B because in the long run, I will get much more money. But obviously, with a payback method, you want to get your money as quickly as possible paid back. Okay, so this is the payback method. Then the next one is what we call the average rate of return. So what is important with the average rate of return is that what we need to do, so we need to work out what is that average payments over the periods. So, and again, we will look at both proposals and then we will need to make a decision from the proposals which one we would go for. So if I look at what my average rate of return is, so my average after tax income for proposal A, one can see it month or yearly, it is 2,000. So there's nothing that we nearly need to work out there. And it's divided by the initial investment, which is 20,000. So my average rate of return for proposal A would have been 2,000 divided by 20,000, which would have given us 10%. Okay, so if I want to then accept proposal B, it needs to have a bigger interest rate than 10%. Okay, so I don't know yet what the average is, but the initial investment was 16. So what I've added here is the total. So if we add 1, 2, 3, so 4.5, 5.5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 13, 14. So our total for proposal B, the incomes would have been 14,000. So 14,000 divided by 8 would have given us a monthly average or a yearly average of 1,750. So 1,750 will be our average of the tax income divided by the investment of 16,000. And that gives us actually interest of 10.794%. Okay, so proposal B, slightly higher return that we're getting on it. Again, if you look at it, it seems smaller because your after-tax income is smaller. But again, because your initial proposal or investment money was also smaller, one could get away with it. But in this instance now, we would have gone with proposal B on the average rate of return. So again, really very important is which method we use, because we can make different solutions or decisions based on the method that we use. Okay, what I've done is, and let's quickly see, so let's look at information that they give us. So and this is also in your study guide, but the third way of looking at your investments, and if you're going to decide if you've gone, yes, please ask.
Sorry, sorry, sir. I think a network problem. I missed it. How did they calculate that 1,750?
Okay, cool. Let me quickly go back to that. Okay, so what we've done with that is to say the 14,000, because that was the total of all the incomes. So if I add from the 1,000 up until the 3,500, my total will be the 14,000, and it was for 8 years. So if I said for 14,000 divided by 8, I would have gotten the 1,750. Okay, does that make sense?
Oh, okay. Yes, it does. Now I see.
Okay. Yeah, and I think what is especially with this average rate of return, one must focus nearly, because there's a few things in here that you need to do. So it is, when I first looked at it, I wanted just to use the total, and then I was like, no, it's the total divided by how many years it was actually growing. So And that average then you need to take over and divide by your investment. So, and I think that is also why I will share this with the recording, is just for you guys also later to see the differences in the formulas, because it's very important nearly, because what they can ask you is nearly the same question, or not say the same question, give you the same information, and then they can say you, by using the average rate of return, which proposal would you go for? By using the payback method, which proposal will you go for? So that it nearly is every time that you need to really understand what the proposal is, how you need to calculate that. Okay. The third one that we are looking at, so let's just quickly, so we've looked at the payback method, we look at the average return, is the internal rate of return. So with the internal rate of return, what is very nice with that is we can use our calculators for that. So whenever we need to work out the internal rate of return, we will use our financial calculator for that. Let me quickly I just want to switch on a light here. Okay, so what I've done is this is also in your study guide. Please don't study the definitions or anything. I've given it to you. You guys they won't ask you to name a definition. If I ask you, you have it at hand in any case. Okay, so out of the one question that they ask us is, and I want to duplicate this so that we can just focus on that one. And what they've asked us is work out the internal rate of return. They give you a present value. So they tell you that your present value, or you start off with 10,000. They then tell us that your end value, sorry, your S will be 18,000. They tell us that that it is invested for 4 years. And then what they also tell you is that it is invested yearly. So that we know that it is one time per year and not 12. And then they actually ask you, what is your internal rate of return? Okay, so with the internal rate of return, what is very nice is we can, if they give us that present value, we can put it in as a present value. The final value we can put in as a future value. We can put in the N, and we can calculate what your interest rate is. So let me, on my side, do that as well. Remember, if we've now worked with some of the other questions, we just need to change the payments per year to 1. In one of the previous questions, we made it quarterly. So we just need to return that to once a year for 4 years. So we've got 4 periods. We've got our present value as minus 10,000. We've got our future value as 18,000. And then our interest or our internal rate of return will be 15,000. 15.82%, not 15,000. 15.82. Okay, so the internal rate of return is actually a very easier one to calculate because we use the formulas that we have built into our calculators. Okay, then the next one, and this is again one of those that they can ask you in the exam, and most likely will, is the net present value one. But what they also link to the net present value, and I think I've included it somewhere here, is a profitability index. So I think what is very important for you guys to look at is this definition 6.3 in your study, guys, but basically more about the profitability index. So how you will work out that profitability index. So what I've got here is some information. So I've got proposal A that says to me, well, I've got an investment of 100,000. So that was my inflows, and then what I got out of it was 85,000 and a 65,000. And the other one, I've worked with a 90 and a 90. So now they ask us nearly to work out what your profitability will be. Okay, so what is interesting is what they've done in this question is they told us that your net present value of proposal A is 27,710, and they told us the net present value of proposal B is 52,000. Okay, so I want to again duplicate that we can actually just work on that component. The rest we can take out. It is in the previous slide. Let's move that up. Okay, so they told us, so if we look at this formula, they told us that when, why didn't it now go to my pen? That the net present value of A is 27,710. Okay, so we've got that. We know the outlay was 100,000. And then that we will divide by what they also say the initial outlay, which is your 100,000. Okay, so we could now work out the profitability index for A, and then we will work out the profitability index for B. They said to us The net present value again was 32,105. The initial outlay was 120. And then also, so let me just, that was for A, this was for B, and then we need to divide that again by the initial outlay, which was 120,000. I see a lot of you guys struggle with the network tonight, so that is also, I will definitely share this after the session so that you guys can have a look at it again later. So it is being recorded, so I will send it to our WhatsApp group later tonight. Okay, so then if we actually work that out, the profitability index for the first one will be 1.27, and the profitability index for the second one will be 1. I've now done it the wrong way. Cool. I will definitely add you to the WhatsApp. You can also send me a WhatsApp. Let me quickly add my number 083-790-8387. But let me quickly, while we're actually chatting, let me just quickly add you to, yeah, I'll add you now to a group in any case. Okay. Okay, so basically when we calculated the profitability index, for the first one 1.28, for the second one 1.27. In your assignments and in your exam, it will not be this close, because that is really, with one decimal, it could go either way. So they will make sure that in your assignments and in the exam, there will be a bigger margin between the two that you need to choose. Because if your calculator is set at one decimal, you will get 1.3 and 1.3. So they will make it that the margins are bigger, or they will tell you that please set your calculator to 3 or 4 decimals so that you can see the difference. But something like this is very seldom that they will ask you to work out the profitability index, and that is nearly the gap between two. Okay, so I think let us stop here for tonight. So what we have covered in this is we've looked at the payback method, we looked at the average rate of return, we looked at the internal rate of return, and we also now looked at the net present value. So we've covered all 4 of them. The one that we will cover next time is the modified interest rate, because I also want to show that to you on Excel, because there's a nice formula within Excel that does it for you as well. So I really want to showcase it if we go through the formulas, how to get to it, but also if we use Excel. Okay, so that is it for tonight. I will share everything. So let me stop sharing my presentation. Let me stop the recording that I can get that